Welcome to Open Scripture, where we seek to sharpen the way the church reads her foundational texts. And we're continuing on with the story of Noah and the flood in chapters 6 through 11 in Genesis. And this particular episode, we're going to focus on what you explained previously as narrative analogies and different parallels, how Noah kind of is a parallel to Adam, and then also he's parallels Moses, and kind of just the story, and you'll explain some of that, the covenant and everything. But before we get there, we have another question from one of our Patreon supporters. And do you know the person's name?
This is Travis.
Travis. Okay, so Travis gave us this question, and it's probably a really popular question. Was there animal death before the fall of Adam and Eve?
Yeah, great question. Great question. I can't remember how much we dealt with that in these episodes, probably not enough. And if you recall, of course, we said that the creation, the heavens and the earth, could be very old. We don't know because, of course, it was created in Genesis 1:1. And the actual days don't start until Genesis 1:3, so it allows for this passage of time. But we would say humanity was probably fairly recent. And again, over the whole time of creation. So for that reason, we would probably maintain, again, that there wasn't human death.
Right.
And this would be consistent with, again, Paul's argument in Romans, and where he's really focusing on man, and he says mankind several times. As for animal death, we would probably allow, or at least I would allow, for there to have been maybe insect death or animal death, maybe again fish or fowl death. One of the things I think we pointed out in the episode was we already see that, of course, the serpent is trying to usurp, God's authority. He obviously has ill will towards mankind. So there was already this sort of, bitterness and confrontation, evil, relational disharmony in the creation order, which we think could point to further trouble within the created order.
Yeah, I think you mentioned this in a previous episode, that after the fall, some people would refer to like when Adam and Eve were given clothing from the Lord, that was a moment of sacrifice, the first sacrifice.
Yeah.
But you said that there was nothing really there that mentioned a sacrificial element.
Right.
And so people attribute that as like the first animal death that occurred. But you're saying that's probably not the right way to read it.
I would probably say that was not the focus, doesn't seem to be the point of the author, or he could have made it a lot stronger if he would have wanted to. I think there was one word there that has a lexical tie, and that is the word, I think there was the word skin, which there's some lexical ties to Exodus and Leviticus, but not very strong at all. So no, I probably wouldn't bring that in. Of course, and there's no mention that this was the first death for sure, So again, all of this are great questions and some philosophical questions again that I think are really forced, maybe upon these texts because of some of what Paul does in Romans. Otherwise, we might not be asking these same things. But one other possible answer that was given by a dear friend of ours, a dear woman who's helping us record here, is that, animals, did they eat, from the tree of life? If you think about it, the tree of life is in the garden. This is possibly what Adam and Eve were eating to live long states of time in the garden. This is the tree of life, right? Well, the animals, they weren't allowed to eat from the tree of life. Again, possible implication that they wouldn't have lived forever, So anyway, there's a little bit to that answer. Thanks, Travis, for sending that question in. Again, we'd love your questions. In particular, again, this is, if you're a Patreon supporter, you get a free chance to ask us questions, and we'll answer those at the beginning of every episode. Again, thank you for supporting us. Patreon supporters is the way that we actually are paying for these episodes, and we appreciate your support in that. As always, please like and subscribe and share this with others that you think would be helpful. Now, we also, just real quickly, I think you already commented on this, but even in the last episode, we said we were going to get to these two analogies. We didn't really get to them. I just, again, want to point out the pattern. We really focused on the pattern. And we're going to return to the pattern ever so slightly, because we're going to see this analogy, between Noah and the flood and Adam and creation. One other thing I could just real quickly do is kind of plug this new book. This is from a friend of mine, Seth Postel, who I think has written a lot of things you all would enjoy. This is narrative, the art of narrative analogy. Again, Seth and I were both trained under the same person, and our methods are very similar. And I think you would appreciate this book. Hopefully, maybe one of these days we'll have Seth.
And where does he teach at?
Seth is in Israel. Seth actually went to Southeastern. We were in the PhD program together. Seth was here in Wake Forest for a long time, and then again he finished his PhD out in California, and then he moved back to Israel, where he and his family live and serve there in Israel.
All right. Well, now to the flood and Noah's Ark.
Yep.
And,
let's do this.
I think it's funny that, growing up, when you read the stories of Noah's Ark, you get these coloring books and you're coloring in the animals, and it's always lighthearted, or, someone creates a nursery and they have the ark on the wall, and it's all happy and sunny.
Of course.
But this is a very tragic story.
Yeah,
Do you
really
take issue with the lighthearted stuff for kids or something?
That's a good question. It's hard to, we're asking the question, you asked the question in the last episode, how do we preach this? Again, it's like, how do we help our children or new believers kind of gain knowledge of this material? And I think for our kids, it's like, okay, they maybe don't have the capacity to see the pattern, So what has been the tendency for all of these stories of the Old Testament is to kind of make these coloring books, whether it's Jonah and the whale, Moses and the Ten Commandments. I mean, David and Goliath. We teach these things maybe in a way that is not as helpful. But again, we're going to have to figure this out. I don't know the answers, We struggled, Beth and I struggled, how to teach this to our children. But we didn't want to teach them in a way that would cause them to read the Bible incorrectly.
Right.
So we were very careful not to teach this just as mere things that happened. We always tried to bring in intentionality as we taught these things. So I say we pick it up here. I think we left off. We kind of had worked through 13. I suppose we could pick it up right here in 14. You could read a little bit. It won't be long before we see the analogy with Adam and Noah beginning. If you just want to start reading
in
here.
Chapter 6.
Yeah, you could start. I think. Why don't you start in verse 17? We skipped a few verses there, but I think that's all right.
All right, so chapter 6, verse 17. Understand that this is the Lord talking.
Okay.
Understand that I am bringing a flood waters on the earth to destroy every creature under heaven with the breath of life in it.
All right, so just real quickly, we're obviously dealing with the earth and the heavens, right? So it's interesting we have earth and heavens here. We know in Adam, we had the heavens and the earth several times. We even had the earth and heavens at the end of Genesis 1. We had waters, right? So we're just even had the spirit of life. So we're just kind of keeping our eyes on these words.
Everything on earth will perish.
Okay, very good. Keep going.
But verse 18, but I will establish my covenant with you. and you will enter the ark with your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives.
All right. So again, here we're going to come back to verse 18. This is the first mention of a covenant in the Bible. Very, very, very significant, right? This is really the first mention of the word covenant. Now, we're going to kind of disagree. I don't know how much we'll get into it today, but we'll disagree with a kind of one system of theology here, covenant theology, who has a covenant both with Adam, but then they even have a pre-creation covenant between God and Jesus. And we can deal with that maybe later this episode, or we'll deal with it on another episode. But I would maintain that no, here is the first, covenant.
Right. You are also to bring into the ark 2 of all the living creatures, male and female.
Okay, so there's our male and female that we saw obviously in Genesis 1. These are pretty rare words, by the way. This is not merely man or woman or, Adam and Eve or something like this. This is male and female, somewhat rare, and again mentioned there in Genesis 1:27.
2 of everything, from the birds according to their kinds.
All right, Genesis 1.
From the livestock according to their kinds.
Genesis 1.
From the animals that crawl on the ground according to their kinds.
Genesis 1.
Will come to you so that you can keep them alive.
All right, just keep on rolling.
Take with you every kind of food that is eaten, gather it as food for you and for them. Noah did this, and he did everything God commanded him. And that takes us to chapter 7. Then the Lord said to Noah, enter the ark, you and all your household, for I have seen that you alone are righteous before me in this generation. You are to take 7 pairs, a male and its female, and all the clean animals, and 2 of the animals that are not clean, a male and its female.
All right, so we got the word animals again. You got the word male and female.
7 pairs, male and female, birds of the sky.
There we go, birds of the sky.
In order to keep offspring alive throughout the earth.
All right, so again, we have our word seed there.
7 days from now, I will make it rain on the earth 40 days and 40 nights, and every living thing that I made I will wipe off the face of the earth.
All right. So just again, we mentioned last time the numbers which help create this chiasm. We got this X pattern, this kind of literary pattern, and it's right here in the middle of the X, which is where 8:1 is, which we mentioned last time. So now we can also see here that the animals, again, are again part of the material that we missed last time. And this is what's creating this sort of analogy to Adam, part of what's creating it. Keep going.
So Noah did everything that the Lord commanded him. Noah was 600 years old when the flood came and water covered the earth. So Noah, his sons, his wife, his sons' wives entered the ark because of the flood waters. From animals that are clean, from the animals that are not clean, from the birds and every creature that crawls on the ground, 2 of each, male and female, came to Noah, entered the ark just as God commanded. 7 days later, the floodwaters came on the earth. And then verse 11. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, on the 17th day of the month, on that day, all the sources of the vast watery depths burst open. The floodgates of the sky were opened.
All right, what verse was that?
That was verse 11 of 7.
Okay, so verse 11, so you get this, all the depths of the great deep, right? The springs of the great deep.
Yeah,
Again, Genesis
1.
1, 2, verse 2. And again, the windows of the heavens. Again, so here's another part of this. And this kind of continues until we also see at the end of Noah's story, if you remember in Genesis 1, 26 through 28, Noah, the Lord blessed Adam and said, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth. Well, this is exactly what's going to happen with Noah at the end. If we just want to flip over there real quick, let's just see if we can find this. I don't have the verses here off the top of my head, but I think they'll be fairly easy. It happens a couple times. For example, 9:1. You just want to read 9:1.
God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth.
All right. So again, obviously there you have, again, the parallel occurrence of that in Genesis 1:28. Moreover, if you remember that all of the green plants of the field were going to be food for all of mankind and living things, now that is kind of replaced in verses 2 and 3 here of chapter 9. The fear of you will be upon all of the living things, and all of these things are going to be food for you. So again, this is people often make a big deal out of this that in creation it was really just the plants that were food.
Yeah, we're Adam and Eve vegetarians.
We're Adam and Eve vegetarians. I'm gonna ignore that question for right now. But then after the fall, if you will, that of course animals become part of that, and so is that because of disobedience and so on and so forth. There is that question, and I guess we could say, regardless of the fall, it's the reality. It's what God allows. So I'm very grateful for that.
But the animals are placed under the authority of Noah.
That's right. That's right.
They have dominion.
They have the dominion. That's again another part of the analogy. So those are the similarities between Noah and Adam. And now again, we get to kind of plumb the depths of the differences. And it's the differences which are significant. So again, the similarities are the beasts, the birds multiplying after their kind, the creeping things after their kind, coming into the ark, going out of the ark, the blessing, be fruitful and multiply, the food, all of this. There's a ton of these similarities, but there is one major difference. And I really can't overstate this case. There's one difference. And it just happens to coincide with the prominence or the spotlight of the author in 8:1 in the middle of this chiasm where God remembers Noah and he makes this covenant with him. And this, of course, is the point here then of the flood story. He causes this wind to pass over and the waters abate. So again, the first half of the flood story, the waters increase, cover everything. The second half, after 8:1, the waters decrease. And again, creation appears again. This is another analogy to Genesis 1, is the dry land appears, just like the dry land appears in Genesis 1. So one of the things we can say here then is one of the differences that the author spotlights is God did not make a covenant with Adam. And again, in spite of covenant theologians disagreeing with this, there's no word covenant. There's no promise like there is here in Genesis 1. No promise forever anyway. So there's lots of things that are missing in the typical cutting of a covenant, including some of the language here where God establishes a covenant with Noah.
So if you don't have a covenant with Adam, is that because there was no sin yet? So there wasn't a need for a covenant because there's nothing to save him from yet?
That could have been part of the reason. That very well could have been part of the reason, because a covenant implies again, kind of promise. There's usually stipulations. There's promise. There's two parties. And in a sense, Adam and Eve didn't need it yet, right? Because, as you pointed out, there wasn't.
So what is the proto-evangelion, where you have the woman, the seed of the woman, and then he will step on the head of the serpent?
Yeah.
So what is that if it's not a covenant, or if it's not a promise?
Well, I would say that is a promise, but I do think that's a word of promise or a prophecy.
Yeah.
But in a sense, that's going to happen, but there's no covenant there.
Yeah.
And in a sense, there's no mediation yet.
Okay.
Because God and man were dwelling together. Now, again, the seed is going to become the mediator. But again, maybe, part of the reason why there's no covenant there is the story just hadn't had enough time to develop yet. So a lot of the things that we're going to say here hadn't really transpired yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, one of the things that we're going to find out in this first analogy is a covenant involves a mediator. And Noah here takes on a sort of mediator role. First of all, he does receive these commands from God, and he does them perfectly,
Right.
right? He carries them out perfectly. And I suppose you could say, unlike Adam,
Yeah.
who didn't carry them out perfectly, Noah carries them out perfectly. And Noah then is a sort of go-between between God and his sons and his wife and the wives of his sons.
Mm-hmm.
So
And the animals, right?
and the animals, yeah, and the animals. That's right. So again, everybody who goes into the ark with Noah is saved.
Hmm.
Comes through the destruction or the corruption, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
of the earth. So that would be one thing here, that this ends up being very important for later mediators.
Yeah. Now, as we're talking about the parallel between Noah and Adam, so with the flood, some people have questioned if this is a flood of like the entire earth, the entire globe. And we've talked about before this word Eretz. Does this mean, does it mean the whole thing, or does it just mean this plot of land? So some people think that it could be a local flood, just destroying the land of Eden. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I mean, I think this is presented as a worldwide flood.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's covered. It's very clear. All of the mountains are covered.
Mm-hmm.
All the flesh, everything that had breath died.
Mm.
So it's portrayed as a worldwide flood. Now, again, if you have a problem with that, I guess, whatever. If it needs to be a local flood for you, then I don't,
Mm-hmm.
that's fine. It's not going to ruin, I don't think it's going to necessarily ruin your theology, but I would
Mm-hmm.
just say, why do you have to, why is that a hang up for you?
Mm.
And if it's like, well, you just can't have all the water, there's just not that much water. I don't know why it would be. But anyway, that's the way the Bible's presenting it.
Okay.
And if it's not too hard for God to create this entire heavens and the earth,
Mm-hmm.
I would think there would be a way for him to have enough water to cover it.
Mm.
And so again, I think we can think of several things there. But to me, it's a worldwide flood.
Okay.
Because again, I think that's the way it's portrayed.
Mm-hmm.
Every mountain top is covered, and all flesh, anything that has the breath of life, expires.
Mm.
So from that standpoint, it's quite a tragedy,
Mm-hmm.
and it was because all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth, and it basically ruined the earth. So again, I think what we're focusing here is on this analogy between Noah and Adam. And unlike Adam, who didn't obey and who, in a sense, didn't mediate for his wife, right? He was absent.
Right.
But Noah here is present, he's obeying, and he ends up, basically carrying out these commands, taking care of all that God had promised to him, or said to him. And again, his sons and his wives kind of go into this covenant, and other people enter because of this mediator. And then, God makes this covenant, and we see God act, right? And he acts in 8:1, and he causes this wind to pass over. And that's what we talked about last time. He's always causing this wind, and it's this wind or spirit, which ends up, basically bringing salvation. Now, what we should probably do is I want to go to basically what happens, and we can just fast forward to maybe 8:20 and 21. This is, of course, after the waters had abated. We see a lot more language related to the beasts and these things. I suppose maybe pick it up at 8:15, and I'm going to try to let you read all the way to 8:20 and 21, because there's where we see some significant action.
Okay, so this is after the waters have receded. Then God spoke to Noah, "Come out of the ark, you and your wife, your sons, and your sons' wives with you. Bring out all the living creatures that are with you, birds, livestock, those that crawl on the earth, and they will spread over the earth and be fruitful and multiply on the earth.
All right, so let me just stop you. We already mentioned all of those words except for one word, and that was this word. I think you're translated it spread over the earth. This is the word teem. Like in Genesis 1, it's this word, let the waters teem. That's the old translation. See what I'm just curious what the ESV does with this word in 17. It's just one more connection. This is a very, very rare word, and it's only used Genesis 1 here and Exodus 1.
That they may swarm on the earth.
There you go. It's the word swarm. So let the waters swarm with swarming things.
Oh, yeah.
That's in Genesis 1.
Yeah.
Here it is right here. It's just one more piece of evidence that this is an analogy to Genesis 1. All right, yep.
Yeah, so Noah, along with his sons, his wife, and the sons came out, all the animals, all the creatures that crawl, all the flying creatures, everything that moves on the earth came out of the ark by their families.
All right, by their families. This word families, again, is going to be important when we come back to it in Genesis 10, the table of nations. All right, verse 20.
Then Noah built an altar to the Lord. He took some of every kind of clean animal and every kind of clean bird and offered burnt offerings on the altar.
All right, so here we just have kind of this first sacrifice, if you will. Now, again, keep in mind, Noah builds an altar. He takes the clean animals and he offers up a sacrifice of a burnt offering. Now, one question is, okay, what are you talking about? Clean animals? We don't have any reference to clean and unclean yet, right? But again, this shows the perspective of the author.
Right.
It's after the legal code. Here he is. Now he comes back into the flood story, and he again inserts his theology of clean and unclean here. And Noah offers up this sacrifice. All right, and it's again the first building of an altar. This is, by the way, what Abraham does all the time. He builds an altar and he offers a sacrifice. And this, of course, is what Noah is doing here. And again, it shows a theology of sacrifice that is going to play out again, obviously all the way up to the New Testament, to the sacrifice of Jesus.
Verse 21, when the Lord smelled the pleasing aroma, he said to himself, I will never again curse the ground because of human beings, even though the inclination of the human heart is evil from youth onward, and I will never again strike down every living thing as I have done.
All right, go ahead and read 22.
As long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, and day and night will not cease.
All right, so again, this is a big deal. Remember, we're talking about how is Noah going to reverse the curse? Well, we just see here, and again, one way that we know this is an important point here for the author is the Lord smelled I think your word was pleasing. This is Noah's name. This word pleasing is literally made from the same name word as Noah's name.
Another word.
So it's a word play. It's really the same part of the word play that we captured in a couple episodes ago with Noah's name and with the word grace and with the word Noah is going to bring relief.
Yeah.
Right. So it's the same two letters, and this is a Noah type of smell. So Noah's offering of the sacrifice pleased the Lord. In other words, it satisfied him. And what's he do? He immediately makes a promise. So the mediator is going to, this is part of what a mediator does. He mediates, and he's going to mediate with a sacrifice. And basically, there's going to be a life that is taken from a clean animal or a clean life. And the Lord then promises to never again, I think yours said curse.
Never again curse the ground because of human beings. Curse the ground,
okay. Yeah. So this is not the word curse from Genesis 3. It's a different word for curse. Let's see what the ESV does with this, see if they treat it slightly differently. This is verse 21. I will never again
curse. But we have a note
footnote.
here.
What's the footnote?
The footnote is or dishonor. So I will never again dishonor the ground.
All right. So again, it's not a big deal here. I'm just pointing out that it's not the same word for curse. This is going to be important in Genesis 12:3.
Is dishonor better?
My only point would be that you don't want the English reader thinking it's the same word for curse as you see in Genesis 3, where he curses the serpent and curses the ground.
Yeah.
But it can mean the idea of curse. This is going to come back up in Genesis 12 when we get to the seed of Abraham. That's why this is kind of a big deal. But whatever it is, because of the mediator's sacrifice here, God makes a promise. Notice there's nothing that Noah has to do. God doesn't say, if you do this, then I won't destroy the earth again. Here he just makes a promise. I'm never going to, what's he say here? I'm never going to treat with contempt or dishonor the ground because of man, basically the evil of man. And he says, I will never smite every living thing. Now, again, what is this promise? He basically says forever.
Yeah.
He's not going to do this. So this could be one way that he is reversing the curse. Whoever is in with the mediator, this is the remnant that God says, I'm not going to wipe out all mankind.
Yeah.
So the remnant is saved from God's wrath or his smiting. The word here is smite. And also he's never going to destroy the earth again. Now I'm adding the word destroy there. He says treat with contempt. But again, this could be part of the promise here that we have. Notice this is universal. This is not related to the nation Israel, right? This is before the nation of Israel.
Right.
And in a sense, it's past the nation of Israel. Remember the author's at the end. He knows Israel. He's gonna make a promise to Israel as well through Moses. That's the other analogy.
Yeah.
But this is the author going back and saying, no, this is a universal promise.
Right.
And this has to do with all the earth. This could have to do with our understanding of the theology of in the second coming, is God going to destroy all the earth? And are we going to be walking in heaven in this other completely other place up in the clouds, Or is he going to remake the heavens and the earth? In other words, he's still going to use this heavens and the earth. I would say this promise implies he's going to use this heavens and the earth. He's going to renew it so that the corruption, but it seems like he's not going to just throw this one away. This is not throwing away. This is more like he's going to make this one new.
Yeah.
We could say he's going to recycle this one. I don't know if that'd be the right illustration or not.
So now I have a question. So back in the genealogy, Lamech, who is the father of Noah, said, "This one will bring us relief from the agonizing labor of our hands, caused by the ground the Lord has cursed." So Lamech is saying this one, Noah, will bring us relief, but he dies. He doesn't survive the flood.
Know what you're saying.
Lamech.
Yep, he dies. Yep.
He doesn't survive the flood, but yet he's saying this one will bring us relief. So he doesn't experience the relief.
Right. Yeah, and again, I think probably when he says bring us relief, I don't know that any of these guys really experienced the relief. I would say none of them really experienced the relief because we haven't even experienced the relief of uncorrupted creation.
So he's just probably speaking on behalf of humanity.
I think he's speaking on behalf of humanity.
Okay.
And also, that's a different word for curse, just by the way. So again, I just want to keep that in mind, that word curse there, and what is that, 5:28?
So that's
the curse of Genesis 3. That's the word curse.
Huh.
I think there's overlap. It's a synonym, but we're just going to keep it distinct until we get to Genesis 12.
Okay.
And we'll draw some conclusions there. So now there is another way that Noah is going to bring relief from the curse. And we'll come back to this. We're not done with this episode yet, but
Mm.
we're going to come back to this in the couple episodes from now, because it's the seed of Noah
Mm-hmm.
who finally is going to bring us total relief from the curse. It's the seed of Noah, the seed of Abraham, the seed of Judah.
Right.
It's this Lion King.
Mm.
It's Jesus.
Mm.
All right. And this is where he's going to defeat death.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, he's going to defeat the corruption of the earth. So that's the seed of Noah that will finally bring us relief from the curse. But I do think this promise here of God also shows us that the relief is going to have to do, again, with a mediator who mediates. There's a sacrifice, there's a death, there's an offering. God is pleased with it. He makes a promise, and the promise has to do with a place that God is going to prepare for his people. In other words, he's not going to treat with contempt the ground.
Mm-hmm.
All right? Now, let's real quickly go to this analogy with Moses. I don't think this is going to take us long.
Yeah.
Let me just very quickly go with it. We won't even dive into the details. But notice Noah is placed in an ark.
Mm-hmm.
What's Moses placed into?
A basket.
It's an ark.
Hmm.
It's the same word.
Really?
Again, this is a very uncommon word.
Huh.
So Noah is placed in an ark. He covers it with pitch.
Mm-hmm.
Moses placed into an ark. It's covered with pitch.
Hmm.
Noah goes through water. Moses goes through water.
Mm-hmm.
Noah keeps God gives him commands. Noah keeps them. God gives Moses command. Moses, for the most part, keeps them.
Yeah.
Even though the Israelites don't. Moses carries out all the instructions of the tabernacle and so on and so forth. There are detailed descriptions of the ark. There are detailed descriptions of the tabernacle.
Mm-hmm.
So there's probably a few that I've missed right there. Moses is a mediator.
Yeah.
Right? It's very clear Moses is a mediator. God speaks to Moses. God appears to Moses.
Mm-hmm.
Moses is sanctified, so on and so forth. So Moses is God's hand. When we get to Exodus, we'll cover more of that, but he's a mediator.
And those who are with Moses experience Exodus, the
Yep,
salvation
that's
in a way.
exactly right. Yeah, that's very good. The Exodus is basically literally typed as the salvation that would come to God's people in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And has to do with a land. And so there's so many analogies or pieces of this analogy. The difference, however, this is a big difference, and this is God makes a covenant through Moses, but this is not a unilateral covenant. Remember, God's covenant with Noah, and by the way, his covenant with Abraham, and the new covenant, by the way. There's no if. If you do this, then I will not treat with contempt the ground. Right? It's just a God just makes a promise. There's no if. There's no conditions that Noah has to fulfill.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not so with Moses and the Israelites. They have to obey the roughly 613 or 19 legal codes. It's always an if you do this.
Mm-hmm.
So God's covenant with Moses is conditional, whereas his covenant with Noah was not conditional. Also, God's covenant with Moses, now this is going to be controversial, and I just want to warn you all, this is controversial. It's not eternal.
The Mosaic covenant.
The Mosaic, the Sinai covenant that God makes with the sons of Israel, right, is temporal. It's not meant to be eternal. Now, there are aspects of it within this that he does say that are eternal. I'm sure I will have people argue with me, and again, that's fine. I completely understand. But the overall covenant, I would say, is not eternal in and of itself. It's temporary. So these are some big differences between the covenant that God makes with Noah and the covenant that God makes with Adam. Well, we saw there that Noah made an altar. He offered a sacrifice, it was pleasing to the Lord. And the Lord makes this promise. And in the next episode, we're also going to talk about the seed of Noah, who is basically the next in the genealogy that we really need to pay attention to, and how relief from the curse will eventually come through the seed of Abraham. So join us next time as we talk about how the Scripture is for you and about you.